I'd like to call to order the regular formal meeting of the Iowa City City Council for February the 19th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Cole.
Here.
Mims.
Here.
Sully.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Teague.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Throgmorton.
Here. So we're going to, item 1A is the State of the City speech. We're going to jump over that for a second so that we can get to Student Leadership Awards. We have two terrific students from Hoover Elementary, Lars Anderson and Lily Lumb. So if Lars and Lily could come up, as I showed you, we can do this. Sorry, it is on? Great. Hi. It's good to see both of you again. Let me stand between you. Okay, so this is one of the great pleasures of being mayor, is being able to hand out awards to terrific students at our various elementary schools. And like I just said, tonight we have two, Lars Anderson and Lily Lumb from Hoover Elementary. So what I'm going to ask each of you to do is read your speeches. First you, Lars, and then you, Lily. And afterwards, I'll read the award, which has exactly the same wording, except it has your name and your award and your name and your award. Okay? So why don't we begin with you, Lars?
Okay. Hello, my name is Lars, and I go to Hoover Elementary. I've gone to many countries, and I think seeing the poverty has shaped the way I see this world, and that has made me want to get involved. This is what I have done for my community. I've worked at the free lunch program and sold lemonade to help the shelter house. I've made quilts for the homeless. In Boy Scouts, we have done many service projects. I'm very active at my church, and I often read and usher. Every month in Sunday school, we do service projects. These are some of the things I've done. I hope to do more in the future.
Wow. That's terrific, Lars. What countries have you been to?
I think like 10 or 11. Yeah.
Oh, can you remember the names of a couple?
Jordan, I lived there. Canada. Recently we went to Italy like 3 weeks ago, and yeah.
Wow. Oh, that sounds great. It's really going to benefit. You'll benefit from that for a long time in the future. Okay, now it's your turn, Lily. Can you read your speech?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Lily. I want to start by thanking my teacher who nominated me for this award, and I want to thank my mom for inspiring me to help people and my family for supporting me. I especially like working with kids in my community, at school, church, the local shelters, and around my neighborhood. One of my favorite opportunities has been working as a youth volunteer at the Antelope Lending Library Bookmobile. I read to the children, play games, and organize craft activities. The Antelope Bookmobile gives kids a safe place to learn and meet their neighbors during the summer. It's great to live in a city like Iowa City where there are lots of volunteer opportunities.
All right. That's terrific, Lily. The Antelope Lending Libraries does terrific work, so I'm really thrilled for you that you have a chance to get out and do some volunteer work with them. Bravo for you. Okay, so we have awards to read. And again, the awards say exactly the same thing, except for your names. So, Student Leadership Award. For your outstanding qualities of leadership within Hoover Elementary, as well as the community, and for your sense of responsibility and helpfulness to others, we recognize Lars Anderson, Lily Lumb, as an outstanding student leader. Your community is proud of you. Presented by the Iowa City City Council, February 2019. So, here's yours, Lars. And Lily, here's yours. So I know there are a bunch of very proud parents out there. I'm pretty sure about that, and proud siblings and other things like that. So please join me in congratulating our award winners for tonight. All right. Good deal. So you can go on back. Thanks. Okay, it's so much fun to be able to do that. So every year, the mayor reads a State of the City speech signaling how our city is doing. It's my honor to be able to do that again tonight. We're going to do a tag team show here. I'm going to read a little bit. Simon Andrew is going to show some slides up on the screen, and once we get to the point where the slides are relevant, the lights will come down, and we'll be able to see this information a lot more clearly. Oh, the lights are moving all over the place already. Okay, so here we go. Let's see if we can do this, Simon. Council members, City Manager Fruin, staff, residents, and all others who have an interest in Iowa City. People routinely ask me how things are going in Iowa City. I tell them, and I tell you now, the big picture is clear. In general, our city is doing great. It is exceptionally strong and healthy. Here are just a few indicators. The city's population grew to a little under 76,000 people in 2017. At 1.8%, our unemployment rate is the second lowest in the country. The annual average dollar value of new construction in 2018 was the city's third highest in the past 10 years. The city's property tax levy went down for the seventh straight year. And city government's AAA Moody's bond rating, the highest a city can have, indicates your city's finances are being managed exceptionally well. One key reason why our city is doing so well is the high quality of work done by city employees. Open your faucet and high-quality water produced at the city's water plant comes pouring out. Flush your toilet and waste flow through city sewers to the wastewater plant for treatment. There's a fire in your house. Who are you going to call? That's right, Firebusters in the city's fire department. With that in mind, I want to thank all our employees, especially those who have been working outdoors over the last 6 brutal winter weeks for the great work they do. And I'm afraid that probably includes tonight. But indicators and good work do not tell the whole story. Not everyone shares equitably in our city's prosperity. 40% of the school district's elementary school students participate in the free and reduced lunch program, which is a surrogate measure of poverty. And there are vast differences in FRL rates from 9.3 to 78.8% among our elementary schools. 65% of renting households pay more than 30% of their income on housing. Some Iowa Cityans feel threatened because of their race, ethnicity, or faith. And this is demonstrated by posters that were distributed around the downtown area over the weekend. And I'll have some words to say about that after I finish this speech. Some also find it very difficult to travel by public transit from home to work and other important destinations. And we are all called upon to respond to the unfolding consequences of climate change. With all this in mind, our task over the past few years has been to ensure Iowa City continues to prosper while also ensuring that the benefits of that prosperity extend to all our residents for years to come. I could belabor the many ways in which we have tried to accomplish this broad goal, but what I want to do now is focus attention on some of the major actions we have taken over the past 3 years to create a more inclusive, just, and sustainable city. So, Simon, please join us. Please take a look at these images showing up on the screen while I continue to talk. All right. Good cities are resilient and bounce back from disaster. The best ones bounce back better than they were before. No doubt many of you remember very clearly the devastating flood of 2008. We bounced back from it in several ways. We essentially completed work on a series of flood recovery projects, most notably construction of the 3-year-long Gateway project, elevating Dubuque Street, building the new Park Road Bridge, rebuilding the intersections of Dubuque with Kimball and Park Roads, and installing a much-needed sewerage trunk line under the roadway. We moved sewage treatment capacity from the old North Wastewater Treatment Plant to the South Treatment Plant, and then replaced the North facility with a new Riverfront Crossings Park. We completed construction of the West Levee south of Highway 6, and we completed buyouts of more than 140 homes in the floodplain, almost all of them in Parkview Terrace. Also, far too many Iowa City residents have great difficulty finding residences they can afford. We undertook major efforts to address this difficulty. In June 2016, we adopted the state's most ambitious affordable housing action plan. This plan identified 15 strategies to generate additional affordable housing in Iowa City, and we have made considerable progress with regard to almost all of them. We adopted an inclusionary zoning requirement for the Riverfront Crossings District. In fiscal years 2017 through 2019, we directed a total of $2.65 million into a new affordable housing fund, and there is another $1 million in the proposed fiscal year 2020 budget. 50% of those dollars have been allocated to the Housing Trust Fund, which subsequently used some of those funds to help build the recently opened 24-unit Cross Park Place for chronically homeless people. We approved an agreement to use $1.08 million of Housing Authority funds to purchase 6 units of rental housing in the new Augusta Place development on Iowa Avenue. We amended the city's comprehensive plan to require that 10% of the residential units must be affordable in new developments which include 10 or more housing units and which voluntarily seek annexation into the city. We approved an infrastructure TIF tax increment financing on Foster Road, which is likely to generate $2 to $3 million over a 10-year period for assisting low to moderate income family housing anywhere in the city. We have also been approving a large number of new mixed-use and multifamily structures that by the end of 2019 will have increased the total supply of housing in Iowa City by more than 4,000 units since 2015. This additional supply has been increasing rental vacancy rates substantially and has been, in the short run at least, been putting downward pressure on rents. Far too many people are in crisis due to alcohol or drug abuse or mental challenges. We took major steps toward helping them bounce back. These steps have included, first, ensuring that all our police officers receive crisis intervention training. Second, helping Shelter House construct its recently opened Cross Park Place facility. And third, collaborating with the county, the university, Coralville, and others to facilitate development of a new behavioral health access center for people in crisis rather than have them treated roughly and then taken to a hospital emergency ward or the county jail. Partly because of these actions, the average daily population in the county jail decreased from 109.6 in 2015 to 88.5 in 2017, and I'm not sure what it is right now. We were trying to find out, and we're unable to find out. Okay. We also live in a city which, like all American cities, has been deeply shaped by racial inequities. We have taken several major efforts to reduce these inequities, including creating a $75,000 social justice and racial equity grants program, using racial equity toolkits to assess the racial equity of various city programs, diversifying the city's workforce, boards, and commissions, continuing the City Managers Roundtable, an annual equity report, and contributing to the Civil Rights Tour of historically black colleges and universities, museums, and sites that have been important parts of black and American history. Under the direction of Police Chief Jody Matherly, the police department has been aggressively striving to reduce disproportionate minority contact involving discretionary charges in non-traffic related incidents, and to reduce disproportionality identified in the St. Ambrose University's annually updated traffic study regarding traffic stops, searches, and arrests. Moreover, we stood with our Hispanic neighbors by adopting a resolution reaffirming the public safety functions of local law enforcement and by linking up with other cities to challenge the legality of presidential executive orders pertaining to sanctuary cities. We supported residents who are refugees or immigrants from Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and elsewhere by joining other cities in court cases challenging the legality of the president's proposed travel ban from predominantly Muslim countries. As could easily be seen in the physical landscape, new private and public construction proceeded at a very lively pace over the past 3 years. The annual average dollar value of new construction for 26 through 2018, $266 million, was 65% greater than the preceding 3-year period. Most of this new construction took the form of apartment buildings, hotels, and mixed-use projects. Many Iowa Cityans ask me whether so many new apartment buildings are needed. After all, rental vacancy rates have increased from about 1.4% in 2015 to 4.4% in 2017, and maybe as much as 7% now. But it is also true that the city's population has grown by about 10,000 people, that is 15%, since 2010. These new residents have needed good places to live, and we anticipate this growth in population will continue. In addition to projects mentioned earlier, city government completed several major public works projects, most notably the First Avenue Railroad Underpass, which has greatly increased accessibility for businesses and residents in the southeast side of the city, and renovation of Washington Street and the first phase of the pedestrian mall improvements downtown. We have also changed or begun changing rules pertaining to development in 2 key parts of our city. In response to the state legislature's 2017 preemption of local authority, as well as to ensure a healthy balance of rental and owner-occupied units in neighborhoods located close to the university, we developed a new rental permit cap program and strengthened the minimum requirements for rental housing. We are also crafting new rules for the area near Alexander Elementary, which will enable us to develop a diverse and walkable neighborhood containing missing middle housing, while also streamlining the overall development process. With the help of the Historic Preservation Commission and property owners, we also took major steps in preserving our historic heritage. This included approving 9 historic district rezonings, preserving the Unitarian Universalist Church, and hiring a consultant to inventory historic structures downtown. Last fall, the consultant recommended that we nominate downtown Iowa City for listing on the National Register of Historic Places, and that we work with interested stakeholders on the possibility of establishing a local historic preservation district for part of downtown. High-quality public schools are necessary for a thriving city and healthy neighborhoods. We adopted a resolution supporting the Iowa City Community School District's bond referendum, which has led to the construction of Alexander and New Hoover elementary schools, the first new such schools in Iowa City since 1994. Likewise, the school district has completed a superb addition and renovation at Longfellow School, and with considerable input from city government, has been making excellent progress toward completing additions and renovations at Lincoln, Mann, and other schools in Iowa City. Global climate change has been producing warmer temperatures, stronger winds, changes in plant communities, more frequent and intense severe weather events, and flooding. With great help from a steering committee of dedicated volunteers, last September we adopted a climate action and adaptation plan which maps a pathway toward reducing carbon emissions generated within Iowa City by almost 30% in 2026 and 80% in 2050. Greatly assisted by Mid-American Energy's big shift toward wind energy, we have almost achieved the 2026 goal already. We also adopted a new master parks plan and a new bicycle master plan, both of which will help us reduce carbon emissions, adapt well to a changing climate, build more vibrant and walkable urban core, and foster healthy neighborhoods throughout the city. Work on the parks has included completing the first phases of Riverfront Crossings Park and improving Happy Hollow, Pheasant Hill, and other parks. Looking ahead to the remainder of 2019, we are collaborating with neighboring cities and the university to initiate a much-needed study of public transit routes and hours of operation. We expect to revise and strengthen our Affordable Housing Action Plan. We will finish work on the Ped Mall improvements downtown, build an extension of McAllister Boulevard from South Gilbert to Sycamore, and initiate the first phase of a new public works facility on Sand Road near Trueblood Park. This new public works facility will include a substantial array of solar panels for generating carbon-free electricity. We will also make steady progress toward achieving goals in the bicycle and parks master plans, including completing 4 to 3 lane conversions on Clinton and Madison Streets and completing renovations at Creekside and Willow Creek Parks. We will make final decisions pertaining to the Pentecrest Gardens project at 12 Court Street and much more. As this quick overview indicates, we have accomplished a great deal over the past 3 years, and more will be done over the coming year. But as the poet John Donne wrote, no man or woman, no man is an island entire of itself. The same can be said about a city. Like all other cities, Iowa City can be thought of as a node in a global scale network of links through which people, goods, services, energy, materials, capital, information, environmental nutrients, and social relationships flow. We are, therefore, inevitably affected by the global economy, by transnational movements of people, by changes in the global climate, and by actions at the national and state levels. For the past 2 years, actions taken by some political leaders at the state and federal levels have threatened to undermine the values that make Iowa City such a great place to live, especially its openness, diversity, inclusivity, and spirit of democratic engagement. As a result, we have been challenged to adjust, at least temporarily, to new realities without losing our moral compass. And yet there's cause for optimism. Your city is doing great. And we, even as we passionately debate about local issues, we Iowa Cityans have demonstrated a very strong desire to strengthen bonds of community across racial, ethnic, religious, and political divides, and to stand strong together in solidarity with everyone who is at risk. Last year, I closed my speech by encouraging us to lead with love. And by leading with love, help build the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s beloved community right here in Iowa City. Let me close tonight by showing you a few photos which provide good reasons to believe we are doing just that. Let's keep it up and thereby ensure that Iowa City will thrive long into the future. Thank you. Okay.
Very nice. I didn't even realize all things.
Signing off. Can you get it? This thing's. Oh, we did it that way. Okay. All right. I didn't know I was going to have to make these 2 additional comments right now, but I think they're appropriate. They have nothing to do with the State of the City speech. But I want to comment on the 24 posters displaying a hateful anti-immigrant message, which were found on kiosks and signposts in downtown Iowa City on Saturday. As we have said many times, as our council has said many times in public and resolutions and proclamations and I don't know what else, many, many times, Iowa City is firmly committed to being a safe and welcoming place for immigrants. We have been and are committed to working with the immigrant community, immigrant advocacy groups, and other community stakeholders to make clear that acts of hate have no place in our community, and that Iowa City can be trusted to protect all its residents from those who would cause them harm. I hope you all understand some things are out of our control. Things happen. But we are, as a group of people, as a city government, as a council, committed to those things I just mentioned. The other thing I wanted to mention is that just a few days ago, I noticed that a former mayor of Iowa City died about 4 months ago. He was a man that I did not know of. I have never met. He died at the age of 93. His name is William Hubbard. So I want to say just a few words about him. I understand he graduated from City High and the University of Iowa and was the youngest mayor in Iowa City's history when he served as mayor in the mid-60s. He was around 40 years of age. According to his obituary, Mayor Hubbard worked successfully with the university to keep the anti-war demonstrations nonviolent, and his legacy from that time includes the city's first fair housing ordinance, outlawing racial discrimination in rentals and ownership, the city's one-way streets, which we're trying to turn around, the Lee Recreation Center, and the pedestrian mall. So that's pretty interesting to learn about, and just by reading the obit. So I send out my condolences on behalf of the council and the city. Condolences to Mayor Hubbard's family. Okay. Item 3 is a proclamation, but I'll just tell you what it is. I won't read the proclamation because there's no one here to accept it. It's Iowa Honey Bee Day. We're doing this in coordination with the governor of the state of Iowa and with cities all around the state of Iowa. I can tell you we revised the language just a little bit to make it sound more like it's from Iowa City. But it's being done in collaboration with the governor and other cities and other parts of the state. Okay, so now we can move to the consent calendar, which is items 4 through 9. Could somebody move adoption of the consent calendar, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Soleil. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Soleil?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Okay, this brings us to the community comment period. This is a moment when anybody who wants to address any topic that's not on the formal meeting agenda should feel free to come up and speak to us about that topic. I just ask you to state your name and take not more than 5 minutes. So would anyone like to speak to us? Good evening, Adil.
Good evening first.
I very pleased when I heard the mayor talk about Iowa City is a diversity city, and it is a good place to live. But still, I feel there is some places still has discrimination and not deal good with immigrant. For example, the housing authority. The first thing I don't like, when you apply for housing, they ask you to bring your statement, the bank statement. And this consider private, and I believe it is just like invasion to your privacy, to see what, at least you can ask for the average of your statement or the balance for the whole year. But you can't request statement for the individual who apply for housing. The other issue, I believe also, is wrong. When you apply for housing, and if your doctor recommended, you have to have this for your safety. And the city, the housing authority, they don't like to respond to what the doctor said. And also, this is, if they refuse this, I consider it just like discrimination on public accommodation. Otherwise, the city is good, but some individual, they make it not good and make some immigrant not happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Adil. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll turn to item 11, which is planning and zoning matters. Item 11A, rezoning 2130 Muscatine Avenue. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 0.155 acres of property located at 2130 Muscatine Avenue from community commercial, CC2, to high-density single-family residential, RS12. I'm going to open the public hearing. Good evening, Danielle.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Danielle Sisman, NDS, and I apologize if my numbering doesn't match yours. I might have been working off an old agenda. We're on the right agenda item, though, this evening. This is a proposed rezoning of 2130 Muscatine Avenue, approximately 6,750 square feet in lot area, located on the corner of Muscatine Avenue and 2nd Avenue, adjacent to the Walgreens store. It's the former France Pest Control offices. The applicant in this case is Anderson Construction. They are considering purchasing the property from a bank due to foreclosure. The lot is currently zoned community commercial CC2, and it's at the westernmost edge of the larger Towncrest commercial area. Community commercial is intended to provide for major business districts to serve a significant segment of the total community. It's typically characterized by a variety of retail goods and services. It can also include multifamily housing over and above those first floor retail uses. It's expected to generate larger traffic volumes and be generally located along major thoroughfares. The surrounding zoning for this property is largely RS5, or low-density single-family, and the requested rezoning would designate the property for high-density single-family residential use, which would permit freestanding single-family homes similar to the surrounding neighborhood, as well as duplexes and townhomes with certain setback design and access provisions. Little background on the proposal. The applicant has expressed a preference to renovate the existing structure as a single-family house, perhaps to perform a historic rehabilitation to allow it to qualify for state aid in that vein. However, if the The structure is currently bank-owned due to foreclosure and has been vacant for some time, and it's likely to in need of serious repairs. So alternatively, the applicant is considering redevelopment of the property as a duplex. So staff did evaluate the applicant's goals and review the existing zoning and evaluate potential rezoning classifications. The first thing we did was look at the existing commercial zoning. So under the CC2 zoning, it's fairly impractical to redevelop for modern commercial use, primarily because of the restrictions on the property for setbacks for the parking areas, as well as restrictions in our code for how far away from the property lines the building needs to be for surrounding residential zones. So this exhibit is just an estimate that we worked through as kind of a thought exercise for the amount of available buildable area for the parking lot in the building. So once you subtract out those required setbacks, you're looking at a fairly small buildable area, and then estimating the amount of land that would need to be allocated for parking for any commercial use, kind of at the average standard. Really, the building could only be between 500 and maybe 1,000 square feet in area, which is fairly small for any kind of modern commercial use. We did also staff look at then the potential rezoning classifications in the single-family density districts. So the question would be, why RS12? The largest constraint on this particular property is the size of the lot. RS12 is the least dense residential zone possible to allow for redevelopment of the site into a conforming duplex or even a conforming single-family detached home. We've looked again approximately at the buildable areas available if the building were oriented either towards Muscatine Avenue or to 2nd Avenue, taking setbacks into account, and there's a much more reasonable amount of buildable area in those cases for that kind of development. We did also evaluate the future land use implications in the comprehensive plan. The Iowa City Comprehensive Plan identifies this area as general commercial development. However, the plan does include goals promoting infill, ensuring that infill is compatible with the neighborhood, and providing for a transition between high and low density uses such as commercial areas and residential zones. It's located in the Central Plan District sub-area B, where there are additional goals to promote reinvestment in those areas and to remove obstacles to reinvestment. Staff does feel like the current commercial zoning is an obstacle to redevelopment of this property. Here's some images of the existing building. You may be familiar with it along Muscatine. Some views of the surrounding neighborhood, which are looking directly up the street, across the street, and down the street. As part of the rezoning, we evaluate traffic access implications, amount of traffic, access, and street design. Essentially, this would be a down zoning from a more intense commercial district to a single-family zoning district. So the traffic generation would be is assumed to be less. Because it's a corner lot, it has access from both adjacent streets. There are currently no existing sidewalks as part of the street design, and staff is recommending a condition that would require installation of sidewalks with redevelopment. So in summary, it's a small corner lot. It's not suitable currently for modern commercial infill due to the required setbacks for the building and for parking. We feel that the rezoning to a high-density single-family residential designation would conform with the rest of the block, as well as the intent and stated goals of the comprehensive plan, and there would be no traffic or infrastructure concerns at this point. At this point in the process, we're in the orange category here, conducting the rezoning process, going through both Planning Commission and the City Council. The next steps, if this were to move forward beyond this application, would be primarily staff-driven. There would be a design review based on the Towncrest design overlay and a site plan review depending on what kind of development is actually eventually proposed. So based on staff's analysis, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, compatible and or complementary with the existing neighborhood, and would not overburden public facilities. Staff did recommend approval of the application to the Planning and Zoning Commission with one condition regarding installation of sidewalks. At its January 17th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission's motion to recommend approval of the rezoning failed by a vote of 3-3. Issues of concern for the Commission included the lack of a concept plan and therefore uncertainty about the neighborhood compatibility of potential redevelopment, and also that no neighbor input on the proposal had been sought by the applicant. In addition, some commissioners felt the applicant should have hired a historian to conduct an intensive survey of the building to determine its historic significance. The applicant has chosen to continue through the rezoning process. To address the Planning and Zoning Commission's concerns regarding neighborhood input, the applicant did hold a Good Neighbor meeting on February 11th. They did follow the city's Good Neighbor program guidelines. One neighbor attended that meeting, and the results are summarized in your packet. Staff continues to recommend approval of the application with the one condition as noted. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Danielle. Any questions for Danielle?
With the parking requirement, could you explain that a little bit more detail? As it stands right now, how many parking spaces would have to be there if they were to have a more commercial use or rebuild it?
So currently it's a fairly undeveloped arrangement. It has a driveway with some pull-off areas for stalls, very kind of informal. If it were to be redeveloped to a modern standard, that would have to change to a more traditional striped, curbed parking lot area with the required setbacks. Typically we use as a use category kind of the average, depending on the zone. So one space for every 300 square feet of gross floor area. There's a minimum requirement of 4 parking stalls, even with that analysis. So if you look at the design of the parking, whether it would be angled, parallel, or any degree of angle, and the required access aisles, there's a kind of estimate that we use for how much of a footprint the parking would take up. So anywhere from, I think the slide said 1,400 to 1,600 square foot simply for those 4 parking stalls and the aisles to get to them. So
the other question I have relates to we have some neighborhood commercial, for example, on Summit. How does the neighborhood commercial differ from the community commercial in terms of, could you put a little restaurant there or a little cafe or something like that?
So that would, the neighborhood commercial designation would drive the uses that would be allowed. The site would still suffer from the same constraints of being a small site. So the parking demand would still be the same. They'd still be working with a small lot. It would just be if you had a different retailer or different type of use, that would be the difference between neighborhood commercial.
And neighborhood commercial is a separate designation,
it's a
correct?
CN1 would be a different zoning designation,
Okay.
right?
Other questions for Danielle?
Has there been any involvement with staff in terms of looking at the question of the historic significance of the structure?
It's not a property that the Historic Planning Commission identified independently as one that they would study and propose any kind of historic preservation for. As you know, owners of property can undergo that, on their own behalf. It would depend on what the survey revealed, whether I think that the Historic Planning Commission would feel that it was significant and want to participate in any kind of designation of it. That's not the applicant's intent. Their intent is simply to be able to qualify for state and federal tax relief or funds to promote the historic renovation, but not necessarily designated as historic for a historic overlay in the city.
Was there any exploration of possibly putting that into a conditional zoning agreement to ensure that if it was rezoned, we would have a historic? Because that sounds great, but I want to make sure that.
Well, it was discussed at the Planning Commission, but since it's not the applicant's intent, the Planning and Zoning Commission did not take that action to make it a condition of the approval.
I know the weather's probably been prohibitive, but has there been any more looking into whether it can be preserved, what the condition really is of the building?
The applicant does have some photos of the interior to share with you tonight, so I'll let them address that for you.
And the Historic Preservation Commission, sometime within the very recent past, compiled an inventory of buildings that it thought were top priority in terms of preserving.
And this was not on their list?
This was not on that list, right? Yeah. Do we know anything about its age or who lived there?
No, at this point we don't. We know what the assessor's website says, but that tends to be kind of a default date that they use sometimes, so it's not we'd need a historic inventory to know more.
Mm-hmm. Other questions for Danielle? Okay, thank you, Danielle. Would anyone else like to speak about this topic? I don't know, perhaps the owner, if the owner wants to. Please just, when you come up, state your name and say whatever it is you want to say.
right, I'm Ben Anderson. I'm the applicant for this property. I am under contract to purchase the property. Depending on this outcome, the intention would be to hopefully restore the existing structure as it is. It seems to be structurally sound. We haven't gotten too far into it. It is, as you can see, in pretty bad shape. Everyone knows, they drive by it all the time. There's holes in the roof for years. I really think it's structurally it's pretty sound. The foundation seems to be in good shape. There would be we've had some asbestos surveys done. I had spoken with a historical representative that Jessica Bristow had connected me with. There's some preliminary stuff that they had found. I wasn't really quite certain if I wanted to go down that path yet. But my intent would be to restore it as it is now. This is kind of an idea of what we would kind of propose if the structure is in fact not capable of being rehabilitated. Just a simple home that would fit within the neighborhood. Just a bungalow is kind of what we had in mind. Definitely would be within the limitations of the proposed zoning. And then this is some photos of other projects that I've done. But like I said, ideally we'd like to rehabilitate the property. Initially wanted to buy it and be able to build a retail area of some sort because I feel like the neighborhood could use that. There was really no way to do that, given the size of the site. I was told that we would have to basically do underground parking to make it feasible financially.
Is the parking the primary obstacle at this point?
Yeah, I think because it's on a corner, you would have to have 2 entrances, and that would eat up such a large portion of it. Even as it was, if we just rehabilitated the structure as it was, that it would be too tight. And one neighbor came to our meeting, and she was mainly just concerned that it would be anything other than residential. The parking in that neighborhood is an issue for her, and especially along 2nd Avenue.
Have you shared your plan with the planning and zoning?
So I was kind of under the impression that this was going to be a slam dunk, so that's why we didn't do a neighbor meeting. That's why we didn't do a concept plan. That seemed really hard to do a concept plan with the intent of just rehabilitating the property. I think they were concerned that there would be no controls over what we could do if we were granted the new zoning. That was kind of what I took from that meeting. But I have not shared any of this with them yet. But
the other projects you showed that are your projects, are they located in Iowa City?
I've built 7 or 8 houses here in Iowa City and Coralville, and I also worked in Colorado, where we lived before.
Mm-hmm. Are any of the ones you showed images of?
Yes, this one is in Rochester Ridge, and the others are in Colorado. So.
Uh-huh. Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Ben? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address this proposed rezoning? All right, I don't see anyone else. So because there was a 3-3 vote, well, I don't know, I guess this would be true anyhow. So I need to know whether you are inclined to vote in accordance with the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation, that is, to deny the rezoning. If you're not if you don't want to agree with the commission, then we would continue the public hearing in order to allow the possibility of consultation with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So, to give you all, make sure we're all on the same path here. I am not inclined to support the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. I think we could move ahead with the proposed rezoning.
I agree.
I agree too, primarily because I want to talk to the Planning and Zoning and have that discussion.
All right. So that means we will not close the public hearing, but instead we need to offer a consult with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yes.
So I need a motion to defer to March the 12th. Is that right, or what?
So
Or
Next meeting.
to the next,
next meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
I
could
move to defer it to the next meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Soleil, seconded by Mims. Sorry to say
And continue
Sims,
the
I'm
public
sorry.
hearing, right?
Continue the public hearings.
Yeah.
Yep.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to 11B, rezoning east of South Gilbert and west of Sandusky Drive. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 18.03 acres of property located east of South Gilbert Street and west of Sandusky Drive from interim development multifamily residential IDRM zone to planned development overlay low-density single-family residential OPDRS5 zone, planned development overlay low-density multifamily residential OPDRM12 zone, and planned development overlay neighborhood public OPDP1 zone. This is second consideration. Could I have a motion to give second consideration, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Thomas, seconded by Soleil. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 11C, rezoning at the northwest corner of Moss Ridge Road and Highway 1. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 3.2 acres of property located at the northwest corner of Moss Ridge Road and Highway 1 from Interim Development Research Park, IDRP, to Highway Commercial, CH1. Again, this is second consideration. Could I have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Teague. Discussion.
I was a little hard on this project before. So
You're just that kind of guy.
I was a little difficult. But Jim, I think you had made a comment sort of offhand about the potential for it being more than, if it's the same one I'm thinking about, more than just a gas station. It's not necessarily guaranteed. I'm really hoping that that this can be essential infrastructure to support hopefully the adjacent area for purposes of development. And I'm also hoping that it won't just be a gas station, that they will seriously evaluate electrical infrastructure. So maybe we could have a little bit of innovation there. So I think they've done a lot of great work. Just had a little concern about that proposed concept, although even that's not guaranteed. So I've come around.
Right. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 11D, zoning code amendment related to minor amendments to address inconsistencies. This is pass and adopt. Could I have a motion to pass and adopt, please?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Soleil, seconded by Thomas. Discussion.
Still have concerns about the facilitating of the alcohol sales. I think that's going to be a problem in the neighborhoods.
Any other discussion? No. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Oh,
Salee?
no, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh,
No.
corrected to no. Okay, motion carries 6-1. Item 12, Gilbert Street intersection improvements. This is a resolution approving project manual and estimate of cost for the construction of the Gilbert Street intersection improvements project. establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'll open the public hearing. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening. Scott Silvers, Senior Civil Engineer. This project generally includes the replacement of traffic signals and pedestrian curb ramps at the intersections of College Street and Washington Street. Also included is the roadway and pedestrian level lighting, a new 12-inch water main on Gilbert Street between College and Washington Street, and then also roadway and pedestrian level lighting on Washington Street from Lynn Street to Van Buren. In terms of the estimated costs and schedule, the estimated construction cost for the project is $960,000. The schedule, we're having the public hearing tonight, receiving bids on March 26th, awarding at the April 2nd council meeting, and then construction will start later in April and be finished up by December.
Scott, pardon me, I just have to interrupt a little bit. Sure. I just noticed there's an accidental error at the very top. It says American Legion Road Improvements.
I apologize. That should have been Gilbert Street Intersection Improvements Project. Mm-hmm. At this time, I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
All right. Any questions for Scott?
We've had some discussions earlier on about road diets on Gilbert. This doesn't affect our ability. Should we choose to go forward to that in the future, to engineer that?
Correct. We are setting up the traffic signals to be able to do that conversion if we decide to do that.
How much of the roadway, if any, will be torn up by the water line?
Sure. So because of the existing utilities that are all, outside of the roadway, we're having to locate the water main under under the existing roadway section. So we're taking out one travel lane and replacing it with new paving to be able to get the new
still
water main
other
in.
lanes will still be open, huh?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Would anyone else like to address this topic? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Soleil. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Peak.
Here.
Thomas.
Yes.
I've done that once too, Bruce. Don't be embarrassed.
Sorry. Yes, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, Bruce.
Doug Morton.
This is where I'm supposed to say something like "yay" or something.
Cole.
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 13, Willow Creek Park improvements. This is a resolution approving project manual and estimate of cost for the construction of the Willow Creek Park improvements project, establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'll open the public hearing. Good evening, Julie.
Hi, Julie Seidel Johnson, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here to introduce you to the Willow Creek Park project. We had our neighborhood meetings last summer at the Party in the Park out in this park. And the idea with this one is a renovation of the shelter, restroom, and playground space with an emphasis on inclusive playground space. So I'll walk you through some of the items. This is what it looks like right now, our older shelter restroom combination that we have in a few parks still. And then you can see the playground is one of our older playgrounds. Not much equipment there, very linear with not much in between. The new plan takes about the same footprint, so we minimize the number of trees that will be damaged or need to be taken out. The playground area stays in about the same spot as the current playground, but this is much larger with different nodes. So I'll get to those in just a minute, but there's about 4 different play zones within the playground area. The restroom is a single stall family restroom. It has room for a larger changing table. Since the playground is designed to be more inclusive, we want to have a changing space for individuals with a range of abilities or disabilities. That stays at the same site where the current restroom and shelter is, so that we minimize the amount of sewer and water that had to be moved. And the shelter moves slightly to the north, so it's in between the playground and the restroom. So the playground itself, as I said, has different nodes, and I want to mention that the color choice is slightly different than what you see here. It'll have some yellows and oranges in it as well. It's called Carnival is the color selection we're going with. But the main area has some climbing features. It'll have poured-in-place solid surface underneath with accessible paths all around the playground. You'll notice this kind of area at the top I guess my pointer doesn't work up there. There's a little quiet area. One of the things about being inclusive, we hear from a number of families that have children that have sensory needs or get oversensitized quickly at a playground. They need a quiet place. So this playground will include kind of a nice little circle space with landscaping around it that will have a seating spot or climbing if you want to do a little climbing, but where they can get away. Then we have the active play area in the center. We have a swing area that will have 2 banks of swings, 2 of them being the expression swings, which allow parent-child swinging, looking at each other as they swing. And then finally, the first area is actually a music area, and it has different musical instruments to play. And that will have concrete underneath because it's not a climbing surface. It doesn't have to have the playground surfacing underneath, which makes it highly accessible to a large range of people. So we have kind of a nice mix in all of those. This is the drawing of the restroom. It's very similar to what's being put in at Creekside Park and not much different than Happy Hollow, except the finishes are slightly different than Happy Hollow. And then the shelter is very similar to what is at Happy Hollow and Creekside. They both follow the master plan guidelines for design. Timeline, bid letting in March, award in April. Construction starting by April 15th, final completion by September. So that means that the Willow Creek part of the Willow Creek Kiwanis Park Complex will be closed most of the summer for this construction project. Depending on how it's staged, we may get the playground open sooner or later, depending on how we can get that staged, since they're kind of in separate areas of the park. We are bidding it with 3 bid alternatives. One is the split face block on the restroom and shelter, which we've done in a couple recent projects. Installation of play equipment, what that means is that whether or not we will have the construction company put the play equipment in versus our own staff. Our own staff can do it, but we'll see what the price is for the installation by the contractor. And then furnishing and installing all the site amenities, the benches, the trash receptacles, those sort of things. They will be a part of the project. We're just not sure if they'll be part of the larger project or done separately by our own staff. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
When I looked at when you laid out the first drawing showing kind of spatially, and I don't know how much flexibility there is, but when I first glance at that, one of my concerns is it looks like the shelter is right in the line of sight between the playground and the restroom. And for parents, that can be a concern. I mean, if you've got a child that's kind of old enough that you can send off on their own, you don't need to go with them, but at the same time, you want to be able to keep an eye. So I don't know, it's just something I don't know how much flexibility you have on where that shelter goes. So.
Some, but not as much due to there's a number of memorial trees right there, so that's kind of part of why it's sitting there. Remember, it'll be an open shelter, though, so you'll be able to see through it. But I get your concern.
Okay, thanks.
And did you say it's going to be closer than it is now? Because the restroom now seems to be quite a ways away from the playground area. But
the restroom stays actually in the same location where it is now, so it's the same distance. That was a trade-off for cost because then we don't have to move the sewer or water lines, the utilities for it.
So this is only on the Willow Creek side, and it will not affect, for example, the community garden on the Kewanee side?
Correct. This does nothing within the Kiwanis part of the park. This also doesn't go as far in as the stream on the Willow Creek side. So this is a very limited project area, just the restroom, shelter, playground, and then additional paths for accessibility.
Other questions for Julie?
It's going to be a really fun playground. I can't wait.
Yeah, but you have your own playground.
Yeah.
So the poured in place surfacing is in the active.
Correct.
Where the play structure is.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that the first? Where do we have poured in place? We have it in the Ped Mall.
The Ped Mall, North Market Square has the tiles.
Yeah.
Tiles. I want to say that's it. Okay. For the parks.
Okay, thank you, Julie. All right, anybody else want to address this topic? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Slay, second by Thomas. Discussion.
I just want to say that this is the first park I went to when I came to Iowa City. I really like it. I met a lot of people that, become long-time friend on that park. I really like that park, and a lot of people on the west side use that park. Yeah, and looking forward to this new development. And also, I guess I was concerned that because it's gonna be shut down all summer, and the west side they don't have really a lot park. That will bring up the concern of thinking of another park on that area too. But I think this is really awesome, idea to improve that area, and it will be fun. Everybody will like it.
I also had concerns when you said it would be closed most of the summer because I just live up the street from it, and it's busy. It's very, very busy at all times, no matter what the season or weather. It's always busy, but Kiwanis maybe will get a little more use that way, and people hopefully, if maybe they don't know Kiwanis is even there, hopefully they'll use that until this gets opened. And I was very happy. John mentioned the poured-in-place surface. I was very happy to see that you're going to give that a try for that park, and that's a great idea. And also that minimal tree removal, because there's beautiful trees. And I think when your tree study you did recently showed thousands of trees, I think, in Willow Creek, which is amazing. It's a very busy park for trails also.
Pauline, you had mentioned a lot of people don't know that Kewanee Park is even there. Well, I was one of those people until relatively recently when you and I had, I think, done a listing post out of Kewanee. Both Willow Creek and Kewanee, I really think they're some of the most spectacular, beautiful parks in the city of Iowa City. So if you haven't been out there in the public, wait until obviously Willow Creek is done, but check out Kewanee. These are spectacular parks, and it's very easy to sort of take them for granted. Major kudos to staff, too. I think we're really getting investment in our parks throughout the city, which I think is very important, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these other parks come online, like Creekside this summer. So great work.
Yeah, Willow Creek really is a beautiful park. It really has a nice extent to it, and the tree cover. It's very, very lovely park. Susan and I were at a listening post there this past summer and had a chance.
When they were doing the thing for the park meeting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're doing the workshop for the park, and so it really is a beautiful place. And the poured in place will certainly increase access. This is a structure which has a little bit more, from what I could tell, ground level access and activity. So I think in terms of ADA access, this has a very high level of access. So that's another special thing about it. So yeah, things are looking good for Willow Creek.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 14, SJRE grant allocation for fiscal year 2019.
I just want to ask the attorney if my organization is one of the people who applied for this, And even though they are not one of the recommended organization for this, do I still need to recuse myself? Okay. Thanks.
Okay, this is a resolution adopting the social justice and racial equity grant allocations for fiscal year 2019. Could I have a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Thomas, seconded by Cole. Stephanie?
So this is a resolution to approve the recommendations from the Human Rights Commission for the Social Justice and Racial Equity Grant for FY19. And the Human Rights Commission is recommending that 8 of the 26 applicants be funded at the full amount that they requested in their applications. And those organizations are the Iowa Harm Reduction, the Refugee and Immigrant Association, the University of Iowa Labor Center, Inside Out Reentry, the University of Iowa Mood Disorder Center, Shelter House, Access to Independence, and then Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County in a collaboration with the South District Neighborhood Association.
Okay. Does anyone want to ask Stephanie any questions?
So out of the total, it seemed like it was probably some great applicants that had submitted. And I can only imagine the difficulties of trying to, narrow it down to who would be awarded. The agencies that you've selected, just because I know a lot of them and the work that they do, seem like they're, will be great applicants to really move forward the mission of the Social Justice and Racial Equity Grant. I guess my question would be to you, like overall, with this experience, can you give us a little insight of the process that was taken to get down to this group?
Sure. So the commission met in early January, and that's when the applications were distributed to the individual members. They then had, I would say, 10 to 14 days to read all of the grant applications that were received. They were then asked to rank them on a scale of 1 to 26 because there were 26 applications received, with 1 being the highest. They then sent their rankings to staff, and then we averaged those amongst the 7 commissioners who participated. We had 2 that had conflicts. And then the rankings, there should be a graph in the handout, but the rankings were switched so that 26 kind of became the number 1. And if you received a score of 1, then that would be the lowest ranking that an organization could receive. So the commission met in this space on January 24th, and they discussed the applications, and they discussed the rankings. And there was some adjustment that they did do because they did want to fully fund organizations versus partially or half funding organizations. And so they voted, and this is what we have in front of us this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Can I answer your question?
Yes. Sounds like a daunting challenge to go through 59 applications. 26. Well, 59, I thought I read somewhere 59 organizations applied for a total of $399,000.
So I think that's probably how they're numbered in the system when they apply. Yeah. The system never starts back at 1. So each year we start where we left off the prior year. So the 59 is probably I think we had 28 applications last year, so we started at 29, and then that probably went into the 50s, if not the 60s.
Okay, so I want to correct my own notes. So it's like 28, you said?
26 this year, yep.
And do you remember, maybe you already said this, but what was the total amount of money they applied for?
So it would be $74,421.
No, that's the limit. I mean, because we were allocating 75.
You want the total?
Yeah. I mean, if you know it. If you don't
know
it,
I do. I have it.
387,612.
So he has it.
Is that the number you're wanting?
388.
Yeah, 387,612.60.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
One of the things I would like to do, and not tonight, but and maybe, and I'm not sure the best way to do this between you, Stephanie, and Jeff, and whoever, but there was obviously some pretty serious discussion within the committee, within the commission, about the allocations. Things like, should an organization get money 2 years in a row? And some people felt they shouldn't. Some people felt, well, it's a totally different program, so that's just fine. Some individuals were concerned about the diversity of the board of directors, whereas me personally, I don't care about the board of directors. I want to know about the diversity of the people who are being impacted by the grant. But there was a number of things like that I got the sense, and I think some people even said it directly the way it was put in the minutes, that either they needed more direction or either they needed more direction from us, or they needed to have more discussion before the next time as to how they were going through this. So I guess I would like, from staff's perspective, whether we need to have more discussion at the council to give them more direction, or whether you feel, they can handle it with their discussion. I mean, I read some things in there that concern me. And so
the commission actually met this evening.
Okay.
And so they're each participating in a survey where they're giving feedback on the process and their thoughts for this allocation period. And then they'll hold a work session later in the springtime.
Okay.
Well, they'll discuss, some of the concerns that you saw in the minutes.
Okay.
And I think that they obviously want it to fund everyone, but they can't. Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy process. And there were a lot of discussions about who has been funded in the past and who should be funded moving forward. And this is only the third year that the commission has been working on making the recommendation to City Council. So I think from the first year to this year was a big improvement, and I think you'll continue to see those improvements. And I think it's just a matter of them, coming together. Each year they learn, and the application has changed, the process has changed over the years to reflect some of the difficulties or challenges they've had. So the work session minutes would definitely be shared with the City Council, mm-hmm. and obviously it's your prerogative, but you could wait to elect to take a look at those minutes to see if there may be more in the ballpark of where you're wanting them to be. That's an option.
One of the things that jumped out to me is it seems like there were some organizations that are already getting funds through our block grant process. Like, so for example, I think we already have funding for Shelter House. Mm-hmm. Did that come up as an issue as far as that goes? And then the other thing with the block grant discussion we've always had this discussion of sort of legacy funds, or more institutional versus sort of startups, for lack of a better term. How did that play out? It seems like most of the grants that occurred in this case were more sort of institutional recipients. Would that be a fair characterization in the sense that they're sort of full-time nonprofits as opposed to someone wanting to hold a community banquet that may benefit certain communities?
So the application does ask whether they've received funding from the city in the past 5 years.
Okay.
It asks for if they've received funding from the city for any program, and then it asks specifically for the program that they're applying for the grant. And my understanding from listening to the commission speak, they evaluate them based upon whether it's a new program or a new initiative for a particular organization versus looking at the other things that the organization may be doing.
Okay.
So it was part of the discussion, and it's just kind of an individual evaluation as to how they rank it based upon that information.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks, Stephanie. I'm not inclined to second-guess the commission on their recommendations. They put a lot of work into it, and I appreciate that greatly. So I don't want to second-guess that. I think it might be very helpful, picking up on what Susan said, I think it might be very helpful if they could identify specific questions they think we should answer for them. They've experienced the process. They have insight into it. Okay, so what do you need clarity about from the council? It'd be very helpful if they could provide that. I noticed, too, and again, I'm not going to second-guess the commission, I noticed that Shelter House requested funds to, quote, revitalize the clinic and replenish needed supplies. And when I was looking at the criteria for the grants, I noticed that funding requests for operational costs are not covered by the grant. So that it puzzles me that, needed supplies sounds like operational funds to me. That said, I'm not going to question it. I just observed that, so maybe the commission can come to us with questions that we need to answer.
I would agree, Jim.
I would also say that there might be some things that we have that we could offer to the commission or even discuss amongst ourselves. One of the things that I noticed with, this is what Rockne talked about, many other organizations are not-for-profit there. They've been granted funds before. When I look at some of the organizations that applied, one of the things that I've noticed is that some of these organizations actually don't have routine funding sources, whereas they don't have a service where they can get like grant from something, or it's not a service that they can get funding for. And so that, for me would just let me know that there might be some things that counselors might want to, just throw out there about, what can potentially be some of the criteria for selecting some of these individuals.
We can do that later on.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, later on. And I think to Susan's point, in terms of further discussions, I think it'd be fun to have an Orville Townsend type conversation that we had with the Community Police Review Board, if they'd select a couple of their members and come to us and have that sort of same collaborative process, so there's a little bit of real-time feedback to the extent people are interested. Yeah. I felt that went really well, and we're going to, on agenda item 16, going to discuss one of the improvements made with other community members. Yeah. So that'd be my suggestion.
That makes sense to me. Okay. Any other questions for Stephanie? No. Thank you so much. Okay. Anybody else want to address this topic? Okay, seeing no one else, so how about council discussion?
You've had it, yeah.
All right, we already had it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, all right. Roll call, please.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Soleil recusing herself. All right, item 15, Animal Services. This is an ordinance amending Title III entitled Finances, Taxation, and Fees, Chapter 4 entitled Schedule of Fees, Rates, Charges, Bonds, Fines, and Penalties, and Title 8 entitled Police Regulations, Chapter 4 entitled Animal Services, to clarify recently enacted animal service provisions and to change the amount of the scheduled fines for certain animal services violations. This is first consideration. Could I have a motion for first consideration, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, second by Cole. Does anyone want to address this topic?
Why don't we have Chris? Would you mind coming up? For nothing else, an introduction to council for those of you that have not met Chris Whitmore. She's our animal services supervisor.
Chris, what's your last name again?
Whitmore.
Thank you.
How
are you doing?
Good. How are you?
All right. So how are things going out at the Animal Services
We're very cold.
facility?
We would like to have spring.
I got to tell you,
good.
I have a dog and 2 cats that came from the shelter.
Good for you. All right.
And 2 cats before that. There you go.
Good. Everybody else can come and adopt too. We have plenty of animals down there to adopt.
I would, but we'd probably violate city code if we were to do that.
You just need to get a permit.
I won't say how many I have in my house.
We can get you set up for a permit.
It's the legal limit, that's all I'll say.
Okay. Good. Well, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming. And
very much.
Thanks.
I think we'll probably take a vote here.
Okay.
All right. Any council discussion?
No.
Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Item 16, Community Police Review Board Amendments. This is an ordinance amending Title 8, Police Regulations, Chapter 8, Community Police Review Board, to provide for changes in procedure and enhance opportunities for conversation when the conclusions of the police chief and the board differ. This is second consideration. Could we have a motion for second consideration, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Teague, seconded by Soleil. Anybody want to address this topic? Okay, seeing no one, council discussion?
I just want to reemphasize for the people that didn't hear our last meeting, this is the product, I think, of true citizen council collaboration. We had Monique Galpin and Orville Townsend come in, who are members of the Citizen Community Review Board, and they gave us some substantive discussions. We had an excellent dialogue, and as a result of that collaboration, I think we have a more effective board. So I would really like to see this as a model for future collaborations with other boards, and I'm really proud of the work that both Orville, Monique, and the board did, as well as the council, in terms of working with them.
I would second that.
All right. Smiles and nodding heads. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throckmorton?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Item 17, Moss Ridge TIF ordinance. This is an ordinance providing that general property taxes levied and collected each year on certain property located within the Moss Ridge urban renewal area in the city of Iowa City, county of Johnson, state of Iowa, by and for the benefit of the state of Iowa, city of Iowa City, county of Johnson, Iowa City Community School District, and other taxing districts, be paid to a special fund for payment of principal and interest on loans, rebates, grants, monies advanced to and indebtedness, including bonds issued or to be issued, incurred by said city in connection with the Moss Ridge Urban Renewal Plan. This is second consideration. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Thomas. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throckmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. All right. Item 18, council appointments. We have, where did it go? We have one vacancy to fill, Board of Adjustment. Yeah, we have one applicant to fill an unexpired term with no gender balance requirement on the Board of Adjustment. The one applicant is Ernie Cox. Any objection to appointing Ernie Cox?
I just wanted to point out that Ernie has been on several, previous boards, but he's the only applicant right now.
I saw Human Rights. Has he been on something
He
else
was on
before?
Human Rights and
I think that was the only city.
Oh, is that the
There's
only
other
one for the city? Okay, yes.
Yeah, that was my concern as well, as we've tried to get people in who haven't done things before.
I didn't note when his term expired on Human Rights. Did you?
How long ago he was on that?
It didn't state it here. And I'm not sure if this is a one that we get lots of applicants for. The board? No, we don't. Okay.
I don't. Yeah, we don't.
It's an important board.
We get just enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm
This
fine
is an
with it.
important board.
All right. Okay, no objection, huh?
Sure.
Okay, so could I have a motion to appoint Ernie Cox to the Board of Adjustment?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Soleil, seconded by Thomas. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's see. Announcement of vacancies. Previous. We have one vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment to the Telecommunications Commission. Applications for that position must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, March the 5th, 2019. We have one vacancy to fill an unexpired plus 3-year term upon appointment to the I don't understand that. To the Housing and Community Development Commission upon appointment. I already said that. So applications for that position must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, March the 5th, 2019. I want to take a break there. Why is it that kind of appointments being made?
Yeah, if there's less than 6 months left in a term, we do the unexpired plus a full.
Okay, thank you. All right, and we have two vacancies to fill 5-year terms on the Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission for East College Street, and 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission for the Jefferson Street District. These vacancies will remain open until filled. Item 20, community comment. Gustav, would you like to speak?
Hi, Gustav Stewart, student liaison. First off, I want to thank Mazahir and Rockney for the city council listening post. It was great, a good discussion, at least I thought.
How many people showed up?
It was 6, 7, though there was a lot of snow that night, so I'm guessing that hindered a lot of people. And then I also wanted to mention Willow Creek Park. I'm excited about that. I grew up right next by there. I always remember playing there as a kid and had a super fun time playing soccer and just enjoy seeing that. And then lastly, I wanted to let you all know about a community event that a university group is putting on called Gathi Raho. I might be mispronouncing that. But essentially what it is February 23rd, Saturday at about 6:30 p.m. It'll be in Engler, and it's a South Asian a cappella group. The Indian Student Alliance is putting it on. So you'll have South Asian a cappella groups from over the country, from what I understand. So it's a cool event. Check it out if you can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Gustav. All right, which gets us to City Council information. And through a quirk of scheduling, we're going to start with you and move to the right.
Fine. I just hope everybody's surviving the cold, snowy, icy weather. And I don't know what it's going to look like when we head out there tonight. I think it's supposed to start at 9. So maybe we can all get home then before it hits. Other than that, I had the opportunity to go out to San Diego for a conference related to work, and it was not as cold as here, but not as warm as I had hoped it would be. But it's always nice to travel other places and see how they do things. And one thing that they have is they call it Fred, and it's a free ride service that is really interesting. It's really it's on the chassis of like a golf cart, okay, but with like 6 seats. So you got three rows of seats, so you can have 5 people plus the driver. What they are trying to do is primarily for tourists in like the downtown San Diego area, and what they're trying to do is avoid having tourists using taxi cabs or driving their own cars around the city, because depending on where you're going, it can be far enough that you don't want to walk. And they told us about at the hotel. You just download the app on your phone and you can call for Fred, the free ride. And we used it coming back from the beach area where we were to the hotel. So it's interesting how innovative different cities are getting with different kinds of services that they might use. They also have some of the same issues there with the electric scooters and stuff, seeing them kind of laying around on the sidewalks. I think a lot of cities are finding that as the companies are coming in. It's just people getting done with them and just dumping them. So that's kind of an issue. But it was a great time, and I always enjoy San Diego when I get the chance. So other than that, I mentioned Access Center earlier, so not a whole lot else.
Yeah, great.
Well, we had another wonderful employee recognition event this past week on the 15th. Just went to show what a wonderful group of employees we have working for the city and their tenure. It's amazing. 30, 35, 40 years is pretty amazing. And there was some good food also. That was on Friday. And on Saturday, I attended an event at the library put on by NAMI. It was called a collaborative mental health event. And it was very informative, and I was glad to see 2 of our police officers actually attended because it really made me proud of what our city has done to support many aspects that relate to mental health, and how supportive we are of the vulnerable members of our community that suffer from mental health illness, and just some of the speaker mentioned our city a couple times on crisis intervention training and innovative things that we're doing as a city. So that made me happy and proud. Upcoming Saturday, March 2nd, is the Crisis Center Pancake Breakfast. It's always a fun event, and they always have elected officials helping to serve. That's early in the morning till like 1 in the afternoon. And Sunday, March 3rd, maybe you'll mention this, the Soul Food Dinner coming up at the Robert A. Lee. Maybe you have a little more information on that, but that's always a really wonderful event with lots of good food. Soul Food Dinner, they call it. And then I also want to take the opportunity to congratulate, although the men are playing tonight, but congratulate the Iowa women's basketball team on their great win the other evening over Maryland, being tied for first place in the conference for many, many years now. But what impressed me was interviewing the coach as well as the players, the theme of teamwork and how important it is that there's no one real star, although there's one that's outstanding. But I think everybody could learn from that you really are stronger together, and working as a team is more important. So that's what I got from that. Mm-hmm. That's all.
Great. All right. Actually, most of my things have been canceled due to weather. But I was able to attend a neighborhood meeting, the South District meeting. And one thing I wanted to just point out about the South District meeting, then the enthusiasm by the attendants there it was astounding. It was very inspiring. And looking forward to some of the things that are coming up. I saw that they were granted some funds through the Social Justice Fund, and so that's very pleasing. I did attend the employee celebration, and it was amazing. The longest employee that was being recognized had been with the city for 45 years, and so that is a long time. So congrats to all of those that had milestone employment years. And I even talked to some that weren't recognized, and still there were a lot of longevity of city employees that very impressive. This Saturday I'm going to be going to a UAY event for LGBT. It's going to be at Tate School, and so that's going to be a great event to attend. And then on Monday, there will be at 5:30 on the 25th, the big reveal launch party for the Crisis Center. And so that'll be interesting to hear and learn about. So that's all I have for now, if nothing else gets canceled.
Okay, first I really want to shout to the University of Iowa for the good movement of keeping the Labor Center open for the next 5 years. We saw that today at the press release, and I guess will go to the Board of Regents on the 27th and 28th. Hopefully it will be approved too. That's really something made me very happy to keep like such great the Labor Center, because that's really helping a lot of people in this community. Second thing is, I guess the listening boost, I'm going to leave that to Rockney because I guess you have the notes and you can report on it. And also on the 21st, Thursday, I guess we have Iowa City Federation of Labor going to have the Iowa City Federations, the Chili Supper. On that, everybody invited to come. And what else? Yes, the good news that I've been selected by the Arab Institute of Washington with the Department of State to go to Tunisia along with another 9 elected officials around the country to go and teach or share our experience with the Tunisian City Council. Because after the Arab Spring movement, Tunisia had new kind of government. They're just trying to do the government the way that the U.S. do it. And, just like we're going there so we can share our work and the way that how they can become transparent and all these kind of things. And also next Saturday, I guess. No, it is on the 2nd, March 2nd, I'm going to Chicago also to speak for, Iowa City. No, hold on. Let me remember the name. It is Fair Trade Campaign. I'm representing Iowa City Fair Trade Campaign, one of them. We're going there for a big event in Chicago, and this is partnered with the University of Iowa. Yes,
so,
that's all I
with
have.
regard to Tunisia.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, Pauline, you took my event, the soul food. But let me just second the soul food. If you've never had an opportunity to go to the soul food event, it really is. I'm telling you, it is the best food you'll ever eat. And I often thought, wouldn't it be cool? I think it's Black History Month this month, isn't it?
Yeah.
I always thought, gosh, I wish I could have met some of the civil rights leaders of the 60s. Like, I'd give anything. And then it really occurred to me, we do have living legends right now in the city of Iowa City. One of them works for the city of Iowa City, Henry Harper. And, of course, the other is the Royce Ann Porter, recently elected supervisor of the Board of Supervisors. And so we do have these living legends in our community that are also tremendous cooks, and they're a lot of fun, and there's always a lot of good conversations. So I'm really hoping to see you all out there. Sunday, March 3rd from 5 to 9 at the Robert A. Lee. So I will second that. I'm going to take one thing a little out of order, and Jim, if I can't bring it up now, I can bring it up next week. But work session topics, a little bit out of order, but I've been getting a lot of feedback on this question of what happened with Lucky's, details related to that. So I would like to have a short discussion on that. I know our TIF agreement is with the developer and not with Lucky's, but we've been getting a lot of questions, and I think it would be good to have a discussion on that about where we stand, if nothing else, just an update. A lot of people relating to that have also brought up the concept of like a food hub or to evaluate that, what we have in Cedar Rapids. Obviously, we can't talk about that here for open meetings purposes, but I would like to at least get that on a work session into the future.
If I could, Rockne, one easy way to do it is to ask the staff to prepare a short memo providing those details about the TIF agreement and how Lucky's did and did not fit into it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes part of an information packet, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah, and I wanted to get that in before, but I didn't. So in any event, that's a little bit out of hand. So we'll get that with staff. And so in terms of the discussion, Gustav is right. We did not have a lot of people at our listing post, but we had a lot of really good topics. Sometimes the smaller the group, the more substantive the discussion. Affordable housing came up as a topic. And, we all talk about affordable housing, but I think for a lot of students, this relationship between affordability and students, are they eligible to petition for some of these units? What role does, and when I mean affordability, we're talking about traditional affordability in the sense of, do you qualify for some of the affordable housing units? That was a topic that was brought up. Are students eligible? And people had talked about some of the special eligibility criteria. So I think in terms of our outreach to the university, maybe in contact with Gustav, I think we really need to keep on that discussion. One of the things that came up that I was not aware of is this question of composting in multifamily units. And I actually, do we have composting in multifamily units? Is that something that's on the agenda? That strikes me as...
It's not mandated.
Okay, it's not mandated. One of the students had brought up that as a big concern. Who knows? We fought for a long time on recycling in multifamily units. Maybe that's something onto the future that we can look at. One of the students reminded, and I think it's good to remind all the audience out there, with salt on sidewalks, we love to have safe sidewalks, but do try to get the pet-friendly salt. One of the students had brought that up. It can be very painful for the dogs especially. It is a little bit more expensive, but do try to do the best that you can as far as that goes. That was primarily what our focus was, but it was a really good discussion. We did not have... What was that?
The parking.
Parking came up as an issue. How exactly did it come up? I forgot.
Like most of the people live in the downtown area, the owner of the building, they don't have like really parking, and they have to go and park far away from the street. And
that was an issue, especially as it came down to the concept of the shuttle, is that people were really feeling there's still a need for sort of the late night shuttle service in terms of our public busing. And so we said, of course, that we do have the busing transportation study. I know staff is aware of that as an issue. There is the night ride service that's available, but the students are really identifying as not really feasible in some cases. I think the times are limited with that in terms of when it's offered. But so as we do that housing study, I think looking at and collaborating with the university, I think will be very important. And finally, it was a really good discussion. I think we always hope that we can have this more productive conversation with students in the city, and it doesn't happen as much as it should for a variety of reasons. But this was certainly a very productive exchange, and gee whiz, we're always ready for more meetings, Gustav. So hopefully you can invite some of these other counselors over there, and we can continue these conversations. So it was a very good discussion.
Well, everyone covered the things I was about to say, but thirds on the employee recognition potluck. That was a great event. Really nice sense of community among the staff. Seconds on the Labor Center. That was such extraordinary good news. There was so much effort that went into that effort to try to save the Labor Center, and it was successful. So that, bravo to everyone who participated in that. And the women's basketball, I happened to make it to that Maryland game.
Oh, get out of here.
And, boy, it was an electric atmosphere. It was really exciting. They have one home game left. It's March 3rd. I encourage anyone interested in, as you said, Pauline, team basketball, and they play it well.
Nobody's mentioned the men's basketball team yet.
You've had a few good nights.
A couple nice
too.
shots there at the end.
Doing well.
Yeah, so I won't mention them.
Playing tonight.
But all right, so I won't repeat the good things that y'all have already mentioned. We'll bring up a couple other things. I attended the League of Women Voters 99th birthday party on the 14th. The 14th, Valentine's Day. I don't know about the timing of that, but and while there, I witnessed a really outstanding one-woman play by Jane Cox performing Susan B. Anthony. It was just an extraordinary performance by Jane. I also participated in a dinner with other Fulbright Commission grantees and witnessed a brilliant performance of Letters from Iraq at Hancher by an oud player and a sextet of string instrument players. I forgot. I didn't write the oud player's name back down. He was just amazing, and he wrote this music based on letters from people who lived in Iraq under several different conditions, all of which were pretty bad. And as he talked about how the music came out of those letters, it was really moving. It was really just amazing to listen to the music and hear him talk about it as well. Just great. On the 28th, I'm going to attend the Solarized Johnson County Success Story. And also on the 28th, I intend to attend the Chamber of Commerce's annual banquet. And lastly, I would like to invite Hoover student Lars Anderson to come up here right after we finish the meeting. I'm going to bang the gavel and say, all right, we're done. Why don't you just come up and walk around behind this podium, okay? All right, so I'm done. Jeff?
Nothing.
Nope.
Nope. No. Oh, well, there we go. So could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Move.
Moved by Slay, second by Cole. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.